Brian Allen Mukes. I'm from Spencer, Oklahoma. And I just like to be identified as a human being. For me, after being incarcerated and now being free for the last 13 years, I've done a lot of reflecting and thought about what got me there, and constantly think about on a daily basis where I'm at and where I want to go, right? So this current criminal system we live in, or whatever you want to call it, was created. The judicial system, the court systems were created when slavery was abolished. So with that being said, I have to look at my family and understand the dynamics of my family. And with that being said, on the other hand, I had a tremendous upbringing. I was raised by my grandparents due to the fact that both my parents still battle some drug addiction and certain things themselves. And I'll get into that here in a minute because it's full circle for me. But it was a little hard for me not having my parents, being raised by my parents, and knowing the struggles they went through as far as using drugs and seeing how the system really let them down. Both of my parents were in armed services. I believe both of them were in the Army. My mom may have went to the military, but I think she went to the Army as well. And it just always puzzled me, like, how did my parents go serve this country but come back addicted to drugs, right? Probably around 10, 9 years old, my grandmother just came to me and told me, your parents battled drug addiction. And that's why, you have to live with us. And we just want you to be aware of these things, because they could see the effect that my parents being absent had on me. So, yeah, it kind of all started then for me, just the tango in my mind of understanding what was right and wrong, right? And not realizing how the system we live in was really set up against me before I was born. I had to live with my aunts and uncles at time when my grandparents would get tired, because they already raised 7 children. They deserved to have a life of their own. And sometimes they needed a break. Not that they didn't want or, weren't going to help me in any way. Just sometimes they needed a break. So I would go spend summers with this aunt and uncle or whatever, cousins here. But that was something else that they kind of warped my mind a little bit, because I would see happy families, and I'm like, why come I don't have that, right? And as I got older, that was kind of hard to digest. And then I started going into my teens. I started looking for ways to numb that pain and fill that void, right? Led to drinking, smoking marijuana, cigarettes and stuff like that. And it just kind of escalated, wanting to understand maybe what, got my parents so hooked and why it would make them want to not be there for me, right? So as I began to understand that, I began to realize that drug usage wasn't for me. But there's some good things I felt like I could do with drugs as far as facilitating making money, right? And I took advantage of that. That's the way my brain works. I'm a deep thinker. I always have been since I was a child. So I was like, hey, I could take this ounce for $50 and make 100. Like, oh, I'm all for that, So that's where it led into me getting into the streets deeply. And that all is connected in a way because I was looking for, like I said, a void to fill. But not only did I find that void, but it was putting money in my pocket and also giving me clout in the community, which I never had before. Once I started selling drugs, I became more influential in my neighborhood. I became more noticed. I started to get more attention, right? Girls started paying attention, right? The big homies wanted me to be a part of what they did, when before it was like, hey, you the little homie on the block. You can't be a part of this. Then one thing led into another. It goes from weed to granny had some pills to I had a headache one day. She said, take one of these. Like, oh, wow, she didn't know. And then she got a big old bottle of these things. So I'm like, hey, granny, I'm taking 10 of them. I said, okay, they like aspirin. Okay. And I'm selling them on the block for $5 a pop, along with the weed. You know what I'm saying? And then when I got to a bigger high school, there's a lot more money around, kids driving nice cars and things like that. And I was the guy that could get these things. You know what I mean? That they only hear about in rap songs, and I can facilitate you getting this stuff. You know what I mean? So I became another cool level, a factor for a teenager that made me feel like I was somebody and doing something important, right? So things just began to escalate, with the drug dealing. And before I knew it, I was selling cocaine. You know what I mean? Selling ecstasy. So I used to hustle and keep a job. And I had children while I was working at 16 by a girl I met. So that really made it more intriguing for me to make money, because now I can take care of my kids and give them all the things I never had, right? Not thinking about what that was going to cause me and my community and them later on down the line, not thinking of what I was getting myself into. So something was going to happen, right? I had a conversation with an older family member at the time. I just told him, I said, and they, he knew what was going on. They used to come to me and get stuff, my big cousins, you know what I mean? So I just told him, like, hey, man, this is kind of getting out of control. I never really thought it would get like this, you know what I mean? But the way my brain worked and the way that the person I am, that a lot of doors opened up in that avenue to where I just kept getting deeper and deeper, making more and more money, so it was kind of hard to turn back from and go to work every day. It was, it became hard to get up every day and feel like I need to punch a clock and make money for somebody else when I can take the money I've already made and continue to profit for myself. And I have pretty much worked for myself, right? So, of course, then I started feeling a power trip. And then I started using drugs, right? It was cool to sip lean, smoke weed, pop pills. Oh, I'm not doing cocaine. I ain't smoking crack. Justified it, right? Became addicted to alcohol, cocaine, painkillers, ecstasy. I mean, I could name it just because I could do it, right? And I started losing my wherewithal, my mental strength, right? Behind all the things that were glorified, all the stuff that I thought that made life right and it was making me happy was really killing me, right? And then I look up one day, catch a case, have a wreck, snap my femur bone, crack my skull open, have 1,000 X pills, over a half an ounce of cocaine, 10 to 8 pounds of marijuana in the trunk, was drunk, inebriated on all kind of drugs, flipped my car. Police arrived on the scene with the ambulance getting ready to help me. They were going to help me and take me to the hospital, but the car caught on fire. And they started, y'all smell that? All the weed in the trunk started to catch on fire, right? So I was sliding through the city for years because I didn't have a crew. It was just me. I would dress up like I was going to work and own a business, have tons of drugs. Police pulled me over. I'm not smoking it. There you go. So I got comfortable, right? It all came full circle. That night, November 14, 2006, I can tell you that day. I wake up in the hospital, can't move, catheter, one leg feel like it's gone. Doctor telling me, well, sir, you're lucky to still be here. After the doctor walks out and tells me that I'm had a 10% chance of leaving, I realize it's the police in the corner. He's chuckling and telling me, hey, well, yeah, buddy, stand to your road. Life may be over, buddy. I just had my third child. My oldest were twins. My son, Little Ryan Jr., was born. Then that journey began, going from having money and pretty much doing everything I wanted to as a young 21-year-old child, because I wasn't a man yet, thought I was, right? Still was a child, most definitely. Having children. And here I am facing, first of all, when I got OR from the hospital to Cleveland County, luckily I was such in shambles, I didn't have to bond out. I was so in such bad shape, they said, we're going to OR you. Got OR, and like I said, my son was born. So I go from hospital, jail, to another hospital to see him being born. And it's like, I didn't even have the time to process what I was really going through, right? All I had to do was think about my children and all the responsibilities I had without all the money that I was using to make, right? In such horrible physical shape that I could barely use the restroom on my own. So I began to have to facilitate fighting my case. I hired a lawyer. Everything around me was collapsed. My grandparents thought I had a job. Then they realized, oh, he's been selling drugs this whole time. So now my family's disappointed in me and worried about me at the same time. And I'm having to fight the court system. They try to give me 25 years from the beginning. Takes about 1.5 years to get a 10-year sentence. My attorney tells me, you're going to do some time. It doesn't matter if this is your first crime with all the drugs and the way that it ended up, you're going to do some time. So she tells me they're coming with a 10. They're going to take 5 in and 5 out. This is foreign language to me at the time. I don't know what that means. And she's like, I'm like, huh? She's like, you need to take this. That means you do 5 in and then you do 5 on probation. I have to turn myself in. Well, in the meantime, I catch another case, hanging out with some friends, trying to still be cool, right? And be the man. Even though I know my life is in shambles, still trying to uphold that facade, right? My ego. Still not learn how to dissolve my ego, knowing I'm about to go to the penitentiary. And that's the first thing I should have been trying to learn how to do is dissolve my ego before I enter the belly of the beast. So I catch another case. I'm in Oklahoma County. The first case is out of Cleveland County. So I'm supposed to turn myself in for this case in Cleveland County. Here I am locked up in Oklahoma County. Now, they don't tell Cleveland County we got him. Cleveland County puts a warrant out for my arrest saying, hey, this guy's one of Oklahoma's most wanted guys that we have. This is what he's done. He's on the run. I actually come from medical with something in Oklahoma County, come back on the pod, and everybody's going crazy when they see me. Like, hey, you're Oklahoma's most wanted, huh? Like, and of course, I just ate that up. I said, how can I be wanted? I'm in here with y'all. Like, I'm wanted, all right. They got me, you know? So I thought my attorney and my grandmother, I guess they don't understand any of that. They're automatically thinking that Oklahoma County would tell them that I'm locked up here, you know? No. So I get smeared all over the Oklahoma City news for being Oklahoma's most wanted while I'm already in jail. I pull a chain from Cleveland County. I have to go to A&R. That's the first place you go. Now, I don't know if you know anything about going to Lexington. If you ever been to Lexington, that's A&R. But when you pull up, all you see is razor wire fences, brother. So it's like a rude awakening, you know? I get in there, never been in trouble. They tell me, you're going to Lawton. What is that? That's a medium facility. How's a 22-year-old kid that's never been in trouble end up at a medium yard that they call stabbing gut? The older guys at A&R got the best of me. You know, they get good jokes out of me. You going to whacking hut, man. They call it stabbing gut. You know, like a lot of people don't make it out of there. And that's something else I started to realize. Like, so you mean to tell me that the system incarcerates us and then doesn't see that anything bad doesn't happen to us? Like, you can go in and do a 5-year sentence and lose your life. So these are the things that I'm starting to notice and realize that I'm going to have to navigate based off my prior decisions. I go from Lawton to Bill Johnson, which is a drug offender work program. And I'm up for parole the day that they transfer me. I'm up for parole. I think I'm going for parole. They come and get me and transfer me to a whole nother yard. That's a program yard. I go from a yard where people pretty much living like a whole nother world. You can do drugs if you want or whatever inside of Lawton to a program yard where they wake you up 4:30 every morning, make you exercise, do push-ups, run. And I'm 24 years old. You know, I'm a grown man. A lot of these are teenagers over here, right? And I'm not even in the program. They're just experimenting with me, right? So I go up for parole. They don't put any stipulations for me to be on this yard or anything. So I get my parole. But yet I'm on a yard to where if I make one wrong mistake, guess what happens? They revoke my parole. And then they play a game with me and tell me, well, you have to get up and exercise every morning. Why? Because I'm not in the program. Well, everybody on the yard is on the program. Well, my paperwork doesn't stipulate like everyone else on this yard that I'm to be in this program. So I was an experimental tool for the system. 3 years after that, they made that a minimum yard with a program yard. So they put me over there to experiment with me, the state of Oklahoma. That's something else the system does without telling. And this is something I figured out on my own. So I get out. I have to start all over, right? I come out. It's like the world don't even look the same. You know, my hometown don't even look the same. When I get home, I feel like I don't know who I am, right? My brain is in a million different places. I don't feel comfortable when I go in public places around a whole bunch of people at that time when I came home. I had got married while I was incarcerated. Came home, had another child. I had received my GED when I was in because I didn't graduate high school due to selling drugs and being in the streets making a lot of money. So when I was released, I took it upon myself to get a FAFSA grant and go to Rose State College and was trying to work and keep a job and go to college and do the right thing. Like trying to man up for my mistakes and take care of my responsibilities, right? Which the system said I should do. That's what society says I should do. Check in with probation. Probation proceeds to tell me that I owe them about $30,000. I get a letter from DHS letting me know my child support never stopped. So now I'm $150,000 in child support debt. Not only do I owe DOC for being incarcerated, but I owe probation. I owe the DA. Here I am, been home 13 years. I still been paying these people. And DHS garnished my wages 60%. They don't care if I have to pay probation, DA, all those fees, and then they're going to put a warrant out for my arrest. That's pretty much what I felt like that's what the system wants, right? Oh, if we lock you back up, we can get another $150 a day for you while you're incarcerated, right? So it's more stuff I begin to understand that I have to navigate from being formerly incarcerated after being released and trying to help my children facilitate growth, right? And become healthy adults without being incarcerated. But how is that possible? How is that possible when I have to work, I have to build myself, and I have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to make sure that I'm not. So the time that I do have with them, I have to have the mental wherewithal not to be exhausted and overwhelmed by what I'm going through, just so I can give them enough attention and love that they deserve and need. Yeah, so it's just, you know, it's a daily battle, but at the same time, it's beautiful that I'm able to facilitate it and you know, still be here holding my head proudly and high to say that I'm still growing. And I know that I'm headed at a place that I'm going to be able to do great things and help people that have been through the situations that I've been through and made some mistakes that I've made, where maybe they won't have to go through all the things that I've been through, right? When I was inside, the things that really made it hard for me was seeing just that, was seeing a whole bunch of people that I had been friends with since elementary, hadn't seen in years, had been locked up since they were in junior high for you know, selling drugs. And would see guys come in when I was in the county. I mean, I'm gonna tell a specific story to get too specific, but a guy had molested his stepdaughter and got probation. And here I am thinking, like, how could that be any worse than what I was doing? You know, at least the people that I was selling my drugs to made a choice. I wasn't pushing drugs on anyone. And those are the type of things that make you realize that certain crimes, you know, that you would think in the back of your mind would just hold a lot of penitentiary time, hold in the sentences lighter than what you would ever imagine compared to someone who was just trying to, not to say one crime is right or wronger than the other, but I was just trying to live, take care of my family. make the best money I can. I thought that's what it was all about. I know I was doing it against the system and wasn't being taxed for my money, right? I understand that. But this is how I've looked at justified selling drugs. We have pharmaceutical companies that let people misabuse their product all the time. We have alcohol, tobacco, and so on. Well, that's how I justified it. Not to say it was right or wrong, but that's part of the system too. Why? Because they pay taxes and they work with lobbyists, right? So, their drug dealing is okay. But because I'm trying to do the same thing you're doing on a smaller level, oh no, you want me to be working for your company, right? If they didn't have anyone perpetuating the system wouldn't exist any longer. There is not just one thing that needs to be changed about the system, because there's so many of them that are set up to be unjust that this system needs to be abolished. I know it'll never happen, and a lot of people are probably going to be upset for me saying that it should be, but it's set up the way it's set up to keep the people on top, up top, right? Let's start rehabilitating people inside of our institutions. Let's make it rehabilitation, not incarceration, right? And I'm not talking about just vocational skills and getting people jobs, right? It should be automatic that if you come into the system without a high school diploma or a GED, that you have to get one upon your release. That should be a stipulation, because the state says they want the society safer, right? They want our community safer. Well, when you put people in a situation to where they're removed from their situation, their previous situation, and you put them in a new one, you can help start facilitating growth to make them think differently, right? Treat them like human beings. Treat them like individuals, not like numbers. When you get incarcerated, you're treated like an animal. They give you a DOC number and they say, inmate, what's your number? And I'm not saying that we have to be on name-to-name basis, right? But there's a certain way that you go about. Like, they demean you on purpose, right? They don't have to demean us. They don't have to make us feel less than. I feel like some of the CEOs get jobs just so they can feel like they have someone that they're better than, right? Let's just make an emphasis on treating those people incarcerated like they are human beings. Just like you would want someone to treat your son, your daughter, your grandmother, your mother. That would go a long way. Right now, I'm working with an organization, OCJR, Oklahoma for Criminal Justice Reform. And what we do is just what I'm talking about, going out to the community and helping them understand how previously incarcerated people are still human beings and we deserve a chance. I don't say a second chance because a lot of us never had a first chance. I hear the second chance all the time. What about the first chance? A lot of us never had a chance. And so we deserve that chance. No matter what that paper says you think we look like, what we really look like on the inside is exactly what you may look like on the inside. And that's the main thing for me is putting the emphasis on understanding that I'm a human being and I'm gonna make mistakes, and that I should be due. I deserve that chance to make that mistake and still be able to move forward and grow and not make a mistake and have to be pushed backwards and always held over my head, right? So with that being said, where I'm at right now is growth and showing myself that what I've been through, and no matter how much the system is set up against me, it's not going to beat me. I'm not going to let it define who I am as a person. And I'm not going to let it overwhelm me like I once had before and force me back to doing the things that's going to keep me in the system. Instead of letting my situations keep me down, I'm letting it motivate me now. What I start to do every day is wake up and learn how to be better as far as health, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. It started for me really one day I was just like, go run. Literally, I had a voice in my head like, go see how far you can run. And I couldn't run a quarter mile. like literally in my early 30s, couldn't run a quarter mile. So I got into running, and that led into me wanting to just go further and further as far as my distance in running, to where over a 10-year span, I was able to complete a full marathon last year. So during my marathon training last year, I trained with Red Coyote, and it's in Midtown. So this was our route. You know, and Scissortail being a peaceful place for me where I go meditate on top of that. And so when they opened this up and we were running the training route for my marathon, I seen that spot. And when I seen that spot, it was like time stood still. While I was running, it felt like time just stopped at that spot right there. So, you know, that was something. And I go certain places where I meditate, and that happens. So that's why that spot is kind of, you know, near and dear for me.